Blog Talk Radio.
Well, good morning. This is Stephen McCarthy, your host of the McCarthy Project, where we have been attacking life and sport since 2001. I am looking forward to today, as we do with almost every day. We're going to be talking with Shaun Goodsell of Mental Edge and the Mental Toughness Academy. And I have known Shaun for probably close to, probably 10 years. Probably now I think back on that, probably right around 8-10 years, and have been thoroughly amazed at Shaun and how he goes about life. He is I'll let him kind of talk about his credentials as far as what he actually, if he's like a licensed psychologist or something of that nature. But he owns a company called the Mental Edge and the Mental Toughness Academy, and he has been working with young athletes, and through the years has coached numerous, state champions, and then also professional triathletes, hockey players, golfers, pretty much the full range of sport in Minnesota. And he has a true compassion for young people and working with them. And so I'm looking forward to hearing what kind of wisdom you can pass along today. I am excited to say that he'll probably be coming on, hopefully maybe once a week, something like that, for a quick 15, 20-minute time frame to talk about life and how to create that mental and emotional edge, that mental toughness edge. So totally looking forward to today. So we're going to go to a quick commercial, and then we'll be back to talk a little bit about the McCarthy Project, why we're here, kind of a philosophy session. And then from there, we'll move over to Shaun, and we'll talk a little bit about what he has in mind. So, again, more than likely related around what he's done today and kind of setting the groundwork for going forward. With that, we will be back after the break.
Five-Star Basketball, the leader in basketball instruction and camps. Endorsed by Michael Jordan, Dick Vitale, and Hubie Brown, and where the teaching never stops. Five-Star Basketball Minnesota will be hosting a one-day instructional camp on May 18th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and will be hosted by Five-Star, the McCarthy Project, and Grassroots Hoops. For more information on the camp, visit themccarthyproject.com/5-star. XL Athlete is the leading provider of online strength and conditioning and speed development camps. For more information on their training programs and speed development camps, visit xlathlete.com.
Alrighty, we are back. This is Stephen McCarthy from the McCarthy Project, and we're coming to you live from the sunny state of Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota. So we're looking forward to life today. And we're going to be talking a little bit about philosophy, because I think it's kind of appropriate when you go into any time talking about motivation and the mental edge and all that kind of stuff, and you really have to get back down to your philosophy. Because, there's an old cliche, he who stands for nothing falls for everything. And so one of the biggest pieces of the McCarthy Project is that we are actually in the pursuit of truth. If it is not fashionable, it's still truth. And that is one of the pieces that I have found in my athletic career is that there are so many people out there peddling because it is such a big business. And they're peddling what people want to hear. And the information, while it might be half-truth, is not the full truth. And nor do I think anybody really has the full truth, honestly, the full revelation of what that means. But when you get down to motivation and understanding a person and understanding why they're going to succeed and why not, you really have to come down to your philosophy. And that's where we're going to kind of come at you. So I want to kind of lay the groundwork of why the McCarthy Project. And then as we move more into with Shaun, he's going to talk about more at the individual level. And so the existence of the McCarthy Project kind of came about in 2001, and I was attempting to be a golfer, a pro golfer, and was, I would say, marginally average. I mean, my chances of making it were pretty slim. I was 32 years old and was embarking on this dream that nobody else had ever accomplished before. And I started going into the training part of the world, and you immediately go onto the internet and you want to find out the best program for strength training for golf, and we talked about sports-specific training earlier. So this was 10 years ago. And I went into it with my eyes under wide open and totally willing to listen to what anybody else had to say. And what I found was that there were a lot of people hawking their information either on the internet, either a personal trainer, even companies at the time were saying we have to train for golf. Tiger was just coming on, and he was the one with all the muscles, and he was winning, and so everybody wanted to work out and be a golfer. Well, what I immediately found out was that there are really a lot of really sharp people that are compartmentalized. And what I mean by that is that they understood a certain philosophy or a certain method really, really well. What they didn't understand is they didn't have the complete picture in mind. And through that process, I realized that we were very, very good in one small area. And through the time of wandering through life and really through simple trial and error, which I don't recommend, we found a philosophy of training. Well, that sort of progressed us up until about 2005, 2006, which we then opened up a retail store for triathletes and cyclists, and then eventually moved off into other outdoor sports. So again, we just started to kind of piece this all together. And what I've realized is that there are truths and there are falses, if that makes sense, or I wouldn't necessarily call them I call them half-truths. And the reason that we created the McCarthy Project was to say, okay, life is a project. It's about life and sport. It's not about one or the other. And there are people out there that have the information that either have done it. I remember listening to an interview by the name of Vladimir Satorsky, and he is a strength coach from Russia. And one of the things that he always talked about is the inefficiency of American sports. And I kind of took a step back and said, well, why would he be saying the inefficiency of American sports? I thought we were the leader. He goes, well, the problem is nobody works together. They all learn on their own and then create their own philosophy. He said, why didn't you just go ask somebody that had already done it for 10 years and then take the information and put it together with this? Be creative, but you just get the information rather than taking years upon years to invest and find out it's wrong, which is what I did. I essentially wandered around and tried things, got a little better, tried things, got a little better. But if I would have just went to the source, we would have been much better off. And so kind of what I kind of come up with is a philosophy, attacking life and sport. And that's where we come down. You want to attack. But somewhere along the line, there's always a realistic perspective. And what I realized after 10 years of wandering around this earth, in this world of training, was I was looking, if you take a tree, you look at the tree, the first thing you more than likely see is the leaves. And then you go up there and you start looking at the leaves, and then you go back down into the stem, and then you're into the branch, and then you're into the little bit thicker branch, and then you're to the trunk. What I found after 10 years of wandering around was the trunk is where the information was at. The trunk is where you start, not the other direction. And so if I can give you a visualization, is that we would rather start with the trunk because even further down into the roots, what is the root base of the philosophy? What are the root causes of why we're doing what we're doing? That will eventually spout the tree. The tree will eventually grow bigger, bigger, bigger. The leaves get more prevalent. There's more of them. But we never always look at the trunk first. We look at the leaf. Oh, look at that pretty tree. And then we start wandering through. Hopefully that analogy brings it out because I think it's backwards. And I think what happened in America is that we have gotten into this position of engineering consent or PR or creating the illusion that we know what we're doing or creating a situation that makes us look cool. And it confuses people because there's so many people that look like they know what they're talking about. And so that is the piece of the puzzle that I'm going to venture to share, is that I've only just wandered. I've made so many mistakes, more than you can imagine. And I have just come upon 4 basic things that come about when you talk about success in life and sport. Now, there's many facets under this, but I'm going to give you the tree trunk today. That is my goal, is to give you the tree trunk. And from there, then you develop out your philosophy related to your understanding of the game or your ability to train at a higher level or elite level type stuff. But you still got to come out of that trunk, and you've got to get the basics first. So when we come back after the break, we're going to sit down and talk about those 4 or 5 different pieces. And then Shaun will come down, and we're going to develop out the motivational piece today. But I really feel that if you guys take the time to see what I'm saying, that there really is success is relatively simple, and if we consistently apply it. Now, the problem is we've gotten a little bit distorted. I got distorted in looking at too many other leaves and got basically just looking at too many things, and it confused me, but the people were confident, and you got to be confident, you know what I mean, if you sell your stuff. Well, that's where I think we got to get all these pieces lined up properly. So after the break, we're going to go into the 4 areas of success in athletics and success in sport, and then Shaun will come back down. We're going to go down and dig down deep into the motivational piece today. So after the break, we'll be talking about the different pieces to the puzzle.
Five-Star Basketball, the leader in basketball instruction and camps. Endorsed by Michael Jordan, Dick Vitale, and Hubie Brown, and where the teaching never stops. Five-Star Basketball Minnesota will be hosting a one-day instructional camp on May 18th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and will be hosted by Five-Star, the McCarthy Project, and Grassroots Hoops. For more information on the camp, visit themccarthyproject.com/5-star. XL Athlete is the leading provider of online strength and conditioning and speed development camps. For more information on their training programs and speed development camps, visit xlathlete.com.
All right, we're back. This is Stephen McCarthy from the McCarthy Project, and we are talking philosophy today. What does it take to succeed in sports? You know what I mean? And there's so many components to this. You know what I mean? And I don't want to come across like I'm oversimplifying. I'm only basically starting. Here's the starting point of a philosophy that will work. There are going to be numerous ways once you get outside of it. There are plenty of different ways to accomplish anything in life. But I'm going to give you one that I know without a question that will work. And that is the piece to the puzzle that I think comes out. We've had untold number of guests in the last 2-3 months. We've had 9 years of experience of working with over 10,000 athletes. And there are more than one way to skin the cat. But I'm giving you one that I know that will work. And that is the piece of the puzzle, and it's not going to be a matter of running around. I think the best example that I give, who has all seen Over the Hedge and the character Hammy? This is what I picture young athletes in the world of sport, is they're Hammies. And basically what happens is their buddy over here is doing something, so they run over there because they said squirrel, and then all of a sudden, then the other part all of a sudden running over there, and you're running to and fro, trying to get something done, and his mouth is going the whole time, and you really don't quite understand exactly what's going on, but he's doing something, and that makes him feel okay. And I think that is the part where we want to get away from, is how do we get away from the busyness to actually doing what's needed, and then we accomplish the mission from there. So out of that, we're going to move down into the 4 areas that I have found are most important. 1 is understanding the game. 2 is your nutrition or your energy. 3 is your motivation. And 4 is training. There are going to be untold number of sub-variables like facilities, equipment that you have, where you're located, all those kind of things. But to me, when you look at sport as a whole, if you desire to succeed, there is a way. Kamal McElwain said, the NFL player that came on a couple weeks ago, he said, everywhere you could go. He came from a small 1A school in the middle of South Carolina, and he was able to catch a vision of what he was wanting to accomplish, and then he prepared himself for success, and then he was ultimately able to succeed. And so those are the kind of sub-variables that we're not going to talk about today, but to come back to understand the game, I think this is probably the biggest portion of success, is that I have seen this more truer than true, is there are a certain number of people, and then we'll use basketball as an example, where you're 6'6", can jump out of the gym and you're coordinated, and you were just given that. LeBron James, Patrick Ewing, Usain Bolt, all these guys that were given some really amazing talent, and they're big, and they can do their talent well. Like Usain Bolt, I think he's like 6'5", 6'6", or something like this. And, to be coordinated at that level with that long a stride, I mean, it is just amazing to watch. Now, did he work hard? Absolutely. But he was given something that nobody else has been given on the track in a long time. Michael Johnson was the opposite. So here's a guy with short legs and improper posture, but he was able to accomplish the same thing. And he wasn't, thinking from the age of 16 that he was going to be recruited, and he went one step by step. So the biggest, most important part is in your head, but it's in your head and what information you have, so it's your coach. Now, is the coach going to do the work? No. Is the coach going to be the one that succeeds for you? No. But he is the one that can give you the information to navigate, to get you going down the right direction, and one that you understand. There are so many different ways to coach, whether you're the power-tripping, my way or the highway kind of guy, or you're the laid-back people or athlete coach or that type of thing. There's so many different pieces. You've got to find out what's best for you and make sure the person has the information. I did not say that every top basketball player went to him. That is not what I said. You have to find out somebody that has the information of how to get you there. I think that's something I heard a coach one time say, is that there are a tremendous number of coaches that are better than I. The only difference was I coach at a more higher profile school, so therefore it's noticed more. But he said there's a tremendous amount of better coaches at different schools that may be smaller that don't get the same notoriety. So you have to realize that in the end, coaches that are good, you will know, and you got to find them, and they'll teach you the game, and they'll teach you the things that you need to know so that you can apply it. The second piece is what you're doing to keep your body healthy, or in a position where it can recover, or in a position where it's not going to break down. I guess that's kind of the same health thing. But if you have clean food, clean, organic, non-GMO food, which I propose this idea to you, is that if you go back and watch, it's funny because I was watching the Golf Channel a couple of months ago, and they had one of those colorized pictures of the Masters. And if you go back and you look at all, you all got the golfers, they're all relatively skinny. But if you look at all the people in the stands, or not in the stands, but in the crowd, they were almost 80-90% skinny. Or, I should say the word skinny, but they were not. They didn't have the big beer gut and all that kind of stuff. And I think, well, why is that? Well, then you tie it with all the information that we have talked over the last couple of months about the quality of your food, what's in your water, are you doing those filtration things? And that is what we're talking about, is if you get a clean, high-quality food source, clean water, clean hydration, that is a competitive advantage. And we've had Michelle Weinstein from Fitzy Foods. We've had Jeff Serra from Fit Foods by Jeff. All these people that have said this nutrition is a competitive advantage today because the food is so loaded with chemicals, pesticides, antibiotics, superbugs, GMO, all that kind of stuff, that it isn't even really food anymore. It's forming almost like a chemical-based product. And so if you have those pieces to the nutrition component put in play, then that is a competitive advantage. Now we move over to motivation, and I think that is another piece of the puzzle that if you take the time to understand yourself, to understand what's real and what's not real, to get a foundation of what truth and what right and wrong is and where you're going, and understanding who you are. This is where the depth comes, and this is where the love of the game comes out of. And all the things that we've talked about, like with Ann Westling a couple of days ago, about the love of the game. Do you play for the love of the game, or are you playing just because your parents want you to? Or like Andre Agassi, I remember him talking about in a book that he said he never enjoyed playing tennis because his dad drove it into him as a young kid. Now, he made millions of dollars, but he never enjoyed it. So what's the point of that? And that's where you come down to this whole philosophy of motivation and how do you find that way to go about life. So that is, again, where Shaun Goodsell is going to come in today, and I'm looking forward to the next half-hour part of the show, or the next segment of the show. But there is so much here to talk about. Unity, causing friction, or causing problems within a team, or not following through, and all these different pieces to the puzzle that need to be addressed. So, and then off the training. And this is one that I have kind of ventured around for 10 years. And I have come to the realization that that every coach in the weight room is not equal. And that probably is, again, no there's no new news in that. But what I'm saying and what I'm proposing is that you find a coach that knows what they're doing, and then, again, doesn't just say, hey, I've got these 5 high-profile clients. Now, on the other side, you've got to have some validation that what you're doing is correct. And so you do have to have some people behind you saying, yes, this is legit stuff. But to market it and then give you the same program to everybody. Again, each one of these things are individual, and it'll be different for everybody in the sense of who you listen to, where do you go, how do you go about it, what's better for your body, what's better for this other person, what are your current situations, what injuries have you had. I mean, there's so many different variables, but you need to find somebody that's taking you into account and what you're doing and how you're feeling and what you're doing. And that's the big piece to the puzzle, is that you need to have all 4 of these in a simple position of, this is tree trunk. I need to have these 4 pieces in order to grow the tree bigger. The bigger has to have the roots and the trunk to grow the leaves and to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's essentially how an athlete grows. It isn't a flash in the pan, so to speak. And it's kind of funny because I remember Kamal saying that the majority of what media is looking for is either what you did wrong, how you failed them in some way so they can dramatize it, or a rags to riches story. And it's true. We're looking to over-dramatize everything. And he said, I would like to come on and just talk about life. What does life look like? And that's where his coming about at the end. He talked about you got creative vision, which is in your motivation, and then you need to prepare yourself to take advantage of the opportunities. Everybody's going to get a shot. Everybody's going to get something will happen. You will get your shot sooner or later. Will you take advantage of it? And that's the part that I think makes total sense, is that you've got to train yourself and be prepared so that when your opportunity comes, you take advantage of it. And you're going to get more than one opportunity, too. But can you take advantage of it? So that's the philosophy of the McCarthy Project in a nutshell. As we go along, I'm sure I'm going to be able to crystallize it a little bit better and talk about it and modify it. But if we accomplish these four basic things, that doesn't mean we run around to every camp. That doesn't mean we run around and do all sports or we do play 3 at a time or, all this kind of stuff. No, you just develop yourself as a person, develop yourself as an athlete, and stick to your knitting and know that you're going the right direction. If you realize that you're off track, you just change and come back and readdress. So with that, we're going off to a break, and we'll be back to talk about some new sponsorship stuff that we got going on and other general housekeeping issues, and then we'll be off to Shaun.
Five Star Basketball, the leader in basketball instruction and camps. Endorsed by Michael Jordan, Dick Vitale, and Hubie Brown, and where the teaching never stops. 5 Star Basketball Minnesota will be hosting a one-day instructional camp on May 18th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and will be hosted by 5 Star, the McCarthy Project, and Grassroots Hoops. For more information on the camp, visit themccarthyproject.com/5-star. XL Athlete is the leading provider of online strength and conditioning and speed development camps. For more information on their training programs and speed development camps, visit xlathlete.com.
All right, we are back. This is Stephen McCarthy from the McCarthy Project. This will be probably a little short 5-6 minute segment. But we are just going to talk about some cool stuff that's happened or some events that are going to be coming up in Minnesota. And one of them is the 5 Star Basketball Camp that's mentioned in our ads. But on May 18th at Minnehaha Academy, we will be 5 Star Basketball will be coming out of New York. And just to give you a little background on them, Dick Vitale, Hubie Brown, Michael Jordan, Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, all these guys have come through this. We have the press release on our site, and so just go take a look at it. There are more people that have come through this camp over the last 40 years. I think that's the true test, is they have stood the test of time of 40 years of being in business. They're still independent, and they are still putting on some of the best camps in the nation every year. And we're looking back. We'll be going down to Chicago as well for the open session camps down there, and then hopefully back as well to the super session, which is the invite-only weekend camp in August. Secondly, Head Cycling has joined the team from that standpoint, and they're going to be sponsoring the radio broadcast and other media, I guess. So if you just look to support them, that would be fantastic. They make some of the greatest aerodynamic products, because they're not just wheels. They have handlebars, stems. In the past, they've had frames. But they have come out with some of the leading-edge products that I think a lot of people have not really taken notice, because Steve and Head are not the big promoters. They started in their garage and they built this business up, and they've always brought really, really high-end information to people. So from that standpoint, that's our quick update for the day. We will be going to a quick commercial break, and Shaun Goodsell will be joining us after the break.
Five Star Basketball, the leader in basketball instruction and camps. Endorsed by Michael Jordan, Dick Vitale, and Hubie Brown, and where the teaching never stops. Five Star Basketball Minnesota will be hosting a one-day instructional camp on May 18th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and will be hosted by Five Star, the McCarthy Project, and Grassroots Hoops. For more information on the camp, visit themccarthyproject.com/5-star. XL Athlete is the leading provider of online strength and conditioning and speed development camps. For more information on their training programs and speed development camps, visit xlathlete.com.
All right, we are back. This is Stephen McCarthy from the McCarthy Project, where we've been attacking life and sports since 2001. I am excited to have Shaun Goodsell on the show today. We're going to be talking about probably not as much as I would like in the first day, because I'd like to just kind of set the groundwork of kind of his background, why he does what he does, and kind of some history, you know, on his career. So, but I do want to give. I've known Shaun as a friend since probably 2002, 2003. He has done, I still think back to those first sessions, and if I would have listened a little bit more, I probably could have saved myself a lot of wandering in this world. But in the end, these are tools, and these are ideas that if you just take the time to listen, doesn't mean you have to agree with them all. I didn't agree with them all. But if you just take the time to put them into your thoughts, they're little key wisdom pieces, and then eventually when the time comes, they'll show up, just like they did for me. And you'll be able to use them. So with that, Shaun Goodsell, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Stephen. It's really fun to be on this show with you and to partner with you on Friday here and see how I might help your listeners just live a better life.
Exactly. And I think it's funny because the first part of the show, it just seemed appropriate that I kind of went over the history of the McCarthy Project a little bit. And one of the biggest things that I think in just talking about life sometimes is that you don't see the people that come into your life at a certain time and then drop these little seeds of wisdom. You know what I mean? And then 4 and 5 is like, oh, yeah, that's what he meant by that. Yeah. so from that standpoint, before we get into this, because I know that we'll go start wandering pretty quickly, you know, about different things. But first of all, tell us all about kind of how you got started, because I know you got a fascinating kind of path and how you got to the point today.
Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here and talk with you. And you know, whenever I tell people about how I got started, I always talk about my growing up years, because when I was a young teenager, you know, 12, 13 years old, I was one of those kids that looked pretty good but felt lousy on a daily basis. And you know, I would give away my snack money at break time in order to buy cinnamon rolls for my friends, and I didn't know it at the time, but what I was really purchasing at that time is I was trying to purchase their affection and purchase their friendship, and that was really the beginning of me going through a really dark teenage time in my life where I didn't really know who I was. I didn't really possess much of any kind of confidence. I was a 3-sport athlete, you know, as a teenager, both, you know, growing up as well as in high school, but I was a mental disaster. And I grew up in a family where my brother was an alcoholic, and so I didn't really have much space to struggle because my brother was taking care of that pretty well for our family system. And so I really had to rely on mentors. I had to rely on people that were profoundly impactful in my life. And I met a guy when I was a junior in high school that took me under his wing and really taught me what life was about and tracked me for years. I mean, he tracked me until I graduated from college, actually, and met me when I was a junior in high school. Took me to Europe, helped me to learn just life lessons, but also modeled for me what it meant to be a person of character, integrity, success. And And then when I graduated from college, I thought, I want to give back. I want to do something to help people that were struggling maybe the way I was. So I worked in a nonprofit organization, and my passion at that point was reaching out to hurting teenagers and the families that surrounded those hurting kids. And I spent 10 years learning about a world that I didn't even know existed. And I spent 10 years walking through some of the most painful, dark times of people's lives. And really what happened is that I learned about my own dark side, and I learned about my own need for love and grace in my life, and learned about my own need for community and to be surrounded by people that cared for and loved me, and did that for a number of years. And then I kind of reached a point in my life where I wanted to, work with athletes. I wanted to work with young athletes because I knew that sports and the involvement that many kids had in sports was revealing to them the areas of their life that were either underdeveloped or had not yet even had an opportunity to develop, but the sport was providing that opportunity for them to learn. And if they were listening, they grew and developed. And if they weren't listening, they really probably stayed stuck and lost motivation and lost the passion to be able to keep playing. And many kids, I think, quit the sports they play, and many families get frustrated with the kids because they don't have the confidence they're looking for, and they don't have they just don't have the internal stability and the mental skills that are required to not just participate well in the sport, but translate that to their life as a whole. So, that's a little bit of an outline of my story, but I do what I do, Stephen, because I love it, because I think I can make a difference, and because, quite frankly, somebody made a profound difference in my life, and I want to give back.
It's interesting that you talk about the mentor, but I think the one part of the story that I think most people miss is there are a lot of people that want to be mentors, but there are some people that are unwilling to invest the time. They want to be your mentor on their time schedule, so to speak. And that is one piece that when I look back on the time that you did, when I was going through some tough times, you still spent time with me to let me just ramble, some days. I'm sure I made the connection to myself being hammy and over the hedge, and I think that's probably the most accurate character I could ever say of myself. I wish I was William Wallace. But I didn't have that kind of focus. I'm hammy. And so from that standpoint, talk to us about how, because I want to just kind of lay the groundwork of philosophy, as how is it that you develop that ability to invest time in people when everybody else is saying, well, I don't want to?
Well, number one, when you've had a person that's been profoundly impactful to you, at a core and emotionally DNA level how profoundly important that is. And so, I don't know that you can teach it in an education class, and I don't know if you can, bribe it out of people, but when you've been impacted by a mentor and that mentor modeled for you the philosophy or the style of impact, it kind of becomes part of you. So, for me, I know that there's one element of being a mentor that sets mentors apart, and it's not the advice they give, and it's not how smart they are, and it's not the classes they took in their coaching curriculums or their mentoring curriculums. To be a great mentor, you have to have two things. Number one, you have to have a love for people. If you don't love people, and if you don't unconditionally love people, you can't be a great mentor. You have to be able to see beyond people's chaos and beyond their humanity and beyond their mistakes, and you have to see to the potential within who they are. And if you can see to the potential because you have a deep love for people, then you're almost like building that great foundation to be able to impact the lives that you invest in, because people want to know and be convinced of your love for them before they give one heck about what you think about their life. And then the second thing is is after I think there's a great love and there's a foundation of that love, then I think you have to be a person of pursuit. I don't think you can wait for people to pursue you. I think you have to pursue them. And, you know, a lot of people will say, well, I don't want to, you know, do other people's work for them. I don't want to reach out to them if they're not reaching out back to me. And what I say in that respect is, when you pursue somebody and you let them know that they're on your mind, and when you let them know that they are on your radar and that you are clearing space away so that they can be a part of your space, there's something immensely powerful about a person that convinces you of their love for you and matches that with consistent, meaningful pursuit. And we can do that today in ways that we couldn't do that 20 years ago. You know, we can send text messages, we can leave voicemails, we can send emails, we can do so many things to let people know that they're a part of our radar that we couldn't do before. And so I think, you know, philosophically speaking, you got to have a love for people, and you got to be intentional about your pursuit of them, and I think that's the beginning of making a difference.
Yeah, it's funny because on the beginning part of the show, I have, over the last couple of weeks, formalized an analogy, which probably has been said before, but it's new to me, so I'm going to call it my own. But is that so many people are pursuing life, they look at a tree, and then they start with the leaves first, you know what I mean? And they're looking at the leaves as, oh, this is a cool tree. This is a cool tree. Well, then they're looking at the stem. Well, then they're looking at the branches. And they keep digging down this line of pursuing information when you should realize that it's in the roots that you start and in the tree trunk that you should be down at a whole other spot. And you wander through life, so to speak, trying to pursue this information, and you're so busy being busy that you never get to a point where you're actually at the serious core of life. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, I think you and I have talked on a regular basis about the sequencing of things in order to create a result. You know, and, you know, when you're a farmer and you want to go and create a harvest, you know, you don't go out the first day on the farm and say, where's my harvest? You got to start with the soil, and you got to prepare the soil. And relationally speaking, preparing the soil, in my mind, is about making sure that your motives and your ambitions about the person or about what you're seeking are pure. That you're willing to do the work, you're willing to till the soil, you're willing to break through and deal with all the resisting factors that often come up in the beginning of farming, that if you were a discouraged, easily farmer, you'd never get to planting the seed. And I think in our lives we have such a desire for quick fixes that we want the harvest before we even prepare the soil to plant the seed. So I think that is relevant based on what you said. Does that match with what you're saying?
Exactly. It's the same thing, only I put it in a tree, you put it in a farm, and I look at my life because you're so busy pursue, and your starting point was all wrong. And therefore, you can work your butt off. And
right.
This happens, I think, in sport more so, is where kids are so busy chasing the new idea, chasing this camp, chasing that camp, chasing this. Oh, that trainer's got it. This person's got it. That coach, you know. And they're busy being hammy when they should be William Wallace and bring it from the inner core of what they've developed as a young person, where they've planted their roots. The tree grows off the roots, you know, and it grows into a big, strong tree. You know what I mean? Or in vice versa, it actually produces, you know, fruits and vegetables, you know, from the farm. So,
yeah, I think most athletes that end up accomplishing something that they would consider to be great, I don't think that they set out to accomplish it. I think they grew into it over time.
Yes.
You know, and I think part of why we have so many young athletes and young people in general that are lost is because we've lost track of the value of growth and we've overemphasized the importance of accomplishment.
Yes.
And if we can keep people focused in growth, accomplishment is a natural byproduct of growth. You don't have to superimpose. If you use the tree example, you don't have to superimpose an apple on an apple tree. You just make sure the tree is growing, and it'll naturally produce an apple.
It's like, duh. But you think about it. Like I put it in a PR world, where we're so busy creating these illusions that we're cool, you know what I mean, when really it is an illusion. It isn't better. I mean, you may be cool, but it's an illusion of what the truth is, not the truth. And I think, it's in today's world, just seems to just get really messed in that we're pursue, and we never actually produce any fruit. And so, unfortunately, it's good.
Sorry, Stephen. I was just going to say that, I think that's the value of good quality mentoring, is that mentors that are tied into and dialed into the right stuff make sure that when people start going off track into illusion and delusion, they actually get them back to reality. Yep. And where reality is, it's not always comfortable, but it's always productive. And I think there's a lot of people, and again, if we use the venue of sports, there's all sorts of different illusions, delusions, tracks that people can run on that go nowhere, but void of quality mentors, void of coaches that are coaching for the right reasons, we are perpetuating a generation of young people that are chasing illusion and delusion, and then we wonder why they don't have any motivation.
Come on, son, go kill him. Well, what am I going after? That thing over there. It was just there. Anyway,
that was a burning bush, wasn't it? Oh, no, that's not a burning bush anymore. Oh, I thought it was burning. No, that was just a weed.
No, the weed, it's over here. No, it's a bush. Don't you understand? Kill him. So, anyways. But we're going to go to break, and then we'll come back and talk. I was going to say about more stuff, but I think we are already on a good path. So we'll be right back after this minute commercial.
5-Star Basketball, the leader in basketball instruction and camps. Endorsed by Michael Jordan, Dick Vitale, and Hubie Brown, and where the teaching never stops. 5-Star Basketball Minnesota will be hosting a one-day instructional camp on May 18th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and will be hosted by 5-Star, the McCarthy Project, and Grassroots Hoops. For more information on the camp, visit themccarthyproject.com/5-star. XL Athlete is the leading provider of online strength and conditioning and speed development camps. For more information on their training programs and speed development camps, visit xlathlete.com. We are excited to offer the following products on the McCarthyStore.com. Innovate Running Shoes, the leader in barefoot and natural running technology. We carry the full line of sizes and colors. Berkey Water Filters, the leader in anti-gravity water filtration. For more information, visit themccarthyproject.com or go directly to the McCarthy Project store website. That's www.themccarthyprojectstore.com.
All right, we are back. This is Stephen McCarthy from the McCarthy Project. Chris Warthout, also from the McCarthy Project, has come on the air as well. He's had a very interesting week dealing with weather and coming back from vacation. I can only imagine the culture shock of coming back to snow and then having to run or organize a race last weekend and getting all prepared for the season. How are you doing today, Chris?
Very good, very good. My apologies for being late today.
No worries, man. You know what's great about life is I have Shaun Goodsell, and he would actually chastise me if I was to yell at you for that.
All right. We'll say Hakuna Matata.
That's right. And you have to love, Chris, I have made 2 movie references during the last 45 minutes.
I have heard that, and I would like to know how many of those were non-Braveheart references.
1.
Okay.
But it was over the hedge.
Okay.
So anyway, Shaun, this is a running story between Chris and I. He is the movie connoisseur, if that's the right way to put it, and he always is testing my knowledge related to movies. And I told him that the only movie that I've ever watched in the last 10 years was Braveheart, and that had to be a sports movie. And so he said it wasn't, but now yesterday, Leslie Patterson, who's a world champion triathlete, actually has a company called Braveheart Boot Camp. So now they're applied. So, anyways, we're back with Shaun Goodsell from the Mental Edge, and we're talking about life and sports. More so than just sport. And I think the biggest piece that I'm getting out of today's conversation is, what is the foundational piece? Where do you start? If you're a young athlete and you want to pursue truth and you want to pursue the right path and you don't want to wander like everybody else, what are the couple things that you would pass along to them to say, okay, this is where I would start, this is what I would look for first?
Well, that's a really great question, and I'll do my best to answer that. But the number one thing that an athlete needs in order to, get stuff and give stuff to the sport is you got to start with motivation. And I think parents on a regular basis probably question or are afraid that their kids are going to get burned out or somehow their motivation is going to be compromised in some way. And I think the number one way that young people maintain motivation is they maintain a purpose for why they participate that goes beyond just wins and losses. And when I work with an athlete, my number one goal is to make sure that I keep the athlete focused on something that goes beyond wins and losses. And some people might say, well, what's an example of that? Well, number one, I want to teach young athletes how to develop and how to create within themselves confidence. Confidence goes beyond the sport. Confidence goes beyond, the things they do on a daily basis. It goes to helping them know and learn about themselves. So I would say motivation is really an important aspect of keeping kids relevantly participating in the sport. And then the second thing is I think they have to have some friends that they know that are a part of what they're doing. And they don't always have to have their best friends, and they don't always have to have a friend when it starts, but they better have friends when it ends. And they better make connections with the peers that they participate with, because in my mind, in the adolescent realm, motivation is tied to, a purpose that goes beyond winning and losing. It also is grounded and founded in developing and building relationships that are pleasing, that are encouraging, that are supportive. And if those two things are a part of the experience, then I think kids, outside of the fun element, which I think actually gets overrated at times, but I think fun is an important aspect of ongoing participation.
Chris, do you have any thoughts?
I've got a question on that. So how do you think individual versus team sports play into that theory for kids? And I'm thinking about, you're talking about building friendships, building fun, and something being outside of just the accomplishment of the sport. And do you see that more kids are going to be participating in team sports outside of, say, like golf or, some other individualistic sport? Does that play into that factor also?
Well, I think, percentage-wise, there's a larger percentage of kids that play team sports than play individual sports. However, even when you're playing an individual sport, you're not doing it alone. I mean, there are still people that are around you, whether it's other people that play the same sport you play, or it's your competitors, or it's people you train with, even though their individual sport is the same as yours. I just think kids need to make connections with other kids, and that in an individual sport, I think it has to be more intentional. I think it has to be more generated versus natural. But even in team sports right now, there are kids that play team sports with other kids, and because it's not looked at as an important part of the sport participation, there are kids that are playing sports with people that they don't know after the year's over. They barely know their names. So I don't think it matters if it's team or individual, but I think if it's an individual sport, there needs to be more intentionality put into it.
So as a follow-up on that, what types of things would you recommend to coaches in, I guess, at all levels of youth sports, whether they're parents that are volunteering for their kids, neighborhood soccer team, or they're a high school football coach? What sorts of things would you give coaches as far as advice to create more of a team building to help eliminate that scenario where the kid doesn't know the kid at the end of the year?
Well, first of all, I'm not a big believer in these exercises that a lot of people do to try to build team, whether it's go bowling or sometimes coaches will buy a book with all sorts of exercises that call themselves team-building exercises. I really think those fail more often than they succeed. But here's a simple example. This year I worked with a high school baseball team. And one of the things that I told the coach is I said, before practice every day, take 5 minutes and tell a kid that they need to introduce themselves to the team using 3 questions. And the 3 questions, aren't intended to be super personal and but it could be, hey, my name is Shaun Goodsell. I love to golf, and in my spare time, I love to watch movies. And that may take 2.5 minutes before practice, but if it becomes a norm and it becomes a point of focus, then the message is sent to the rest of the team that we care about you knowing each other. And I think that's a good start. And that could happen with the dad that's out on the soccer field working with the 10-year-old girls or boys. And I don't think it has to be more complicated than that at the beginning.
It's interesting that you talk about connections, because now in the world of making connections, we talked about the social media and how great it is. But also, do you see a downside in a team format through social media?
Well, social media to me is, it's here to stay. So, it's not going away, and our kids are more involved in it than I would like to admit at times, but I don't necessarily see a down or an upside of it. For kids that are shy and maybe a little more introverted and reserved, social media provides an outlet of expression which maybe wouldn't be there if if social media didn't exist. So, but on the other hand, kids that only use social media and use that as self-expression but never learn how to connect interpersonally with each other outside of that, then I think that ends up becoming a method of avoidance versus a method of connection.
Interesting. That's the most balanced approach because you don't think about it as from the person that maybe wouldn't be involved in a conversation because they're sitting in the corner, so to speak. But by having an access point, they can be involved.
Right. When it comes to our sports, I think our coaches are significantly impactful, and because we watch too much ESPN and we watch coaching only from the perspective of the professional coach or the Division I college coach, we forget that youth coaching it's really about mentoring. It's really about making impacts and inroads into kids' lives and doing it because and through a sport. And simple activities as, hey, introduce yourself to the team in the next 2.5 minutes. You can learn more about a person and how they introduce themselves than you might learn the whole year when they play. And, Stephen, do we have time for me to tell a story about this?
Absolutely. We've got 15 minutes, so much as you need.
So as part of this baseball project that I did, one of the reasons why I was brought in was to try to improve team cohesion. And a lot of people had a lot of ideas about what kind of team-building exercises we should do and all that stuff, and I didn't go about it that way. And we met in a conference room one day, and I said to everybody on the team, I go, over the next 4 weeks, every one of you is going to get to talk with your teammates. But I'm going to guide the type of conversation. I'm not going to tell you what to say, but I'm going to guide the type of conversation. And here's how I'm going to do it. I want each one of you over the next month to see yourself as a person who values learning. And you can learn about anything you want to learn about. All you need to do is give us a 4-minute brief description of what your topic was, why you chose it, and what you learned. And throughout the next month, the kids would come up in front of each other, and they would set the timer, and they would present their topic, and I was absolutely blown away by what I heard. The first kid came up in front of his teammates, and these were sophomores and freshmen coming up in front of seniors, so these weren't just the same age kids. There were some younger kids, some older kids. First kid comes up and said, I chose to learn about the topic of autism. And then he broke for a minute because he was choking up, and he said, I wanted to learn about autism because my brother struggled with autism my whole life, and I've never understood what it's about, and I'm tired of being mean to him because I don't understand autism. And I just lost it. I mean, I didn't tell them what they needed to say. I just gave them a format that allowed them to express themselves to their teammates, and all 18 kids over the 4-week period of time had the same charge to learn about a topic, present it, and why they did it. And every one of them was riveting. Every one of them had a personal component that, by accident, gave them a connection and a cohesion together that they wouldn't have had in any other way. So that's why I'm a big proponent of this.
See, and the funny thing that my perception of what you're saying is spending time being real and passing along something that is really in their life at that time, and then why they're doing it. And it seems so simple, but you could just see how all the walls, all the two faces, all gets dropped because now you're being real with people. You know, and they probably don't see that very often.
Kids want to be real with each other.
Yep.
I've heard for years that when I talk about, like when I teach at a coaching symposium or I am teaching, at a coach's training, and I tell them that they should give their kids an opportunity to get to know each other, and here's the format to do it, 95% of the coaches tell me that kids won't do it. And I keep telling these people they not only will do it, but they will shock you when they do it. And, certainly nothing is 100% surefire, but I've been doing this a long time, and I believe if you challenge kids to be relevant and meaningful with each other, they'll be relevant and meaningful with each other. If you allow them to play the sport for 4 months and you never challenge them to know each other, then they're not going to come up to you, tap you on the shoulder as a coach and say, hey, coach, don't you think it's about time we get to know the guys we're playing with? They're not going to do that. But if the coach intentionally creates the space and the expectation for it to occur, it will occur.
And I would actually 100% go behind that, because in this age of being so introverted, I would say, is that people want to know each other. They want to spend time with each other, but so many pieces take us away. We're running over here, we talked about it in the first half, but running over here, running over there, and you are not allowed just to sit down and be who you are and sit there. Like when we grew up, we spent more time sitting and talking than we did playing, if you will. But
right.
That seems to be lost in today's society.
Well, and part of the reason it's lost is because the leaders of people don't demand it. We've almost lost a certain sense of perspective. If you know, we talked earlier about the illusion,
yep.
And the illusion is that we can do group-oriented things without being a group, and we can do team-oriented things without putting any emphasis on team. And the reality in my mind is that when we honor people's desire to connect and we give them a format to do it and we create the expectation that that's how we do things here, then people will follow.
Chris?
I first of all, I 100% agree with you guys. I haven't had anything to input because I can't agree more. And I think that the late great Whitney Houston really summed it all up when she says, "I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way."
Yep.
And then I think Eddie Murphy actually sang that better in Coming to America. But I had to put a little funny in there because we were getting really heavy. We put a little funny in there. It's all joking.
Yeah. Chris, I missed you this week. How in the world do we survive without movie references?
Well, I mean, if you remember Coming to America, it was Eddie Murphy. It's like, I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. I mean, isn't that just beautiful? Doesn't that just sum it all up?
It's hard to argue.
Braveheart. Let me tell you about Braveheart.
What would William Wallace say? Let's just say that.
Exactly. And by the way, yesterday there was a person that actually agreed with me yesterday. One. But, hopefully we move on from there. All right. So now the last 5 or 6 minutes, I'm going to give a big whopper of a softball question. And you're going to say you can't cover it in 5 minutes. But, again, we're just going to start with the groundwork. Is that now we've got our team starting to go the right direction. And now we need a leader. And the leader has always in the past been shot down for being different and wanting to tell everybody what to do. What would you recommend to that person that says, okay, now I would like to step forward and be a leader?
So are you saying that this is the same leader that's been shot down, or are you talking about a different leader?
Either one. I'm just saying it just seems to be in the world today that we want leaders to lead, but with parents involved, they always think that their kids are the leaders, and this just mishmash of politics, of bullying, of all these things take place. How does a leader, if they so choose, whether they're Tom Osborne from Nebraska, who was not a charismatic, jump in your face type leader, to Nick Saban, who, from what you hear, he just lights everybody up every practice. There's different leaders, different situations, but what were the things that you would say to do for people that want to start to become the leader?
Well, I would say, first of all, Chris, you're going to love this. You're going to love this representation. I'm going to say, first of all, go watch the movie The Breakfast Club.
Oh, no, another movie?
What do you think of that, Chris? Do you like that?
Well, first of all, love it. I'm just waiting to see who do you reference to. As you reference into the Judd Nelson character, the Emilio Estevez character. Because there were lots of different leaders from different levels in that movie, and I'm waiting for the next step. I'm waiting for you to make the jump on here.
All right, so you set it up on a tee for me, and I got my driver all right now. And what I'll tell you is that leadership, the reason why I love that movie is because we think as adults that we're going to name a leader. And in reality, if you watch that movie, you realize that leadership isn't something you name. Leadership is something that evolves. And what I try to encourage people who want to aspire to leadership is, I could be wrong about this, and maybe I'm all wet about this, but I think leadership starts with being a servant. I think it starts with making other people's needs and agendas more important than yours, and I think it means that you are the most encouraging, uplifting, positive, and team-oriented person that's there, because I don't think you can truly lead long-term unless you see yourself as a servant. And the movie The Breakfast Club is a great indicator of the adolescent culture, because nothing's changed, even though that movie's, 30 years old?
Please don't say that out loud.
I mean,
I don't know what Breakfast Club is, so I don't know how old it is.
So you're saying that the Anthony Michael Hall character... So you're saying the Anthony Michael Hall character was the leader because he started out as being the person who was in charge of writing the report for everybody, but in essence was the spokesman for the group in the end, even though he was coined as the geek or the nerd to start with and put down by all of the traditional leader types.
What I'm saying is that every person led and every person followed in that movie. The spokesperson at the end wasn't the leader. The spokesperson was the spokesperson. But, Emilio Estevez, as the jock, confronted the burnout, who was Judd Nelson, but then that happened back and forth, and there was all sorts of interplay that each person exhibited leadership in moments and also exhibited followership in moments. And the thing about the youth culture is we as adults want to name a leader. We as adults want to have somebody that promotes our agenda within the culture of the team, when in reality, we need all people on the team to be leaders, and we need all people to be followers if we really want to promote a quality team experience.
Yes.
I like it. I think that I agree. I agree very much so.
Because it's true, because I think the kids, on one hand, will select at times a different person. You might be the leader in football, but not the leader on the basketball court, or not the leader, when you're out going to the movies. It does make sense that everybody has their time and place to lead. You don't have to always be the one out in the front, running the show, so to speak. You know what I mean? We all want to be the big CEO type thing.
Well, if you think about, one of the most asked questions I get from a high school perspective is, what do you do with captains? How do you manage captains? And I tend to think that there are two areas you need to think about it in. As the sport gets more important in terms of winning and losing, you need to have a performance-oriented leader, somebody who has the skill set to ignite and enhance the opportunity to win. You got to have those type of people. And so I guess within the sport realm, you might say that those are leaders because they are allowing and carrying the opportunity for the team to have success. But you have role players too that if they don't do their piece, then those other individuals can't be as successful as they would like. But then you have locker room leaders or social people who make sure that the environment is safe emotionally, who, when people are getting out of hand, put them back in place, or when they speak about something, the rest of the team values what they say. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're the best player. That just means that for that period of time, they may be in a place of respect where the rest of the team cares what they have to say. But I ultimately think that, again, everybody in a season, whether you're 10 years old or 18 years old, I think everybody needs to be given the opportunity to exhibit leadership, but I also think that everybody needs to understand the value of followership.
Unbelievable. Well, we have come to the end of today's time, unfortunately. But I do have some good news in that Shaun has been gracious enough to come on for a short time every Friday morning at the same time. And I think this is going to be a great addition to the show because one of the big pieces is this motivation piece and relationships. And you always hear stories of people that, hey, these are the 4 buddies I played college basketball with, and we're still friends to this day. And in today's world, we need to have more people that are going to show people how to do that if they're not going to learn it from coaches. And I just don't see coaches, enough of them, going down the right path. So hopefully this show becomes of value. I can't see why it would. You know what I mean? But then again, I get excited about cool stuff like this too. So anything else that you'd like to add, Shaun, before we close down for today?
I would just like to thank both you and Chris for the opportunity to be a part of this with you guys. And my heart is that I want to see people tap into their greatness. And I don't believe that any of us tap into our greatness without another person or group of people showing us what it is. And so I'm a huge believer in team. I'm a huge believer in the value and the opportunity for coaches to impact young people. And if this is a venue that provides some value for some people, then I am honored to be a part of it. So thanks for inviting me to be a part of this with you guys.
Anything else, Chris?
No, I'm just really glad that we've added this aspect because as a youth coach also, and somebody who struggles to try and find motivation and answer a lot of the questions that you guys have talked about today, it's just nice always to hear like-minded people who are in it for the right reasons. So just once again, thank you for being who you are and being a part of what we do.
Cool.
Yeah, you bet.
And we're all going to go off in life and conquer the world. No?
I was hoping that we would sing Kumbaya before we left, but maybe that's next week.
No, we need a rendition of Whitney Houston, Eddie Murphy, Coming to America. Chris?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I would have suggested a sound drop, but I don't want to get sued by Universal Studios because they're a relatively large group of people. You know, and you know, Sexy Chocolate is definitely one of the best, I think, most underrated church performing groups and VFW performing groups of the late '90s. So I'm just going to let everybody have that little voice in their head and not taint the memory of the late great, you know, Whitney Houston at all. So,
all right, guys, thanks for coming. Really did enjoy it, Shaun. I look forward to talking with you again next Friday as well. And I promise we'll get to the subjects because I know you've got some really cool little tidbit type information that you'd like to bring about. And so next week we'll focus a little bit more on those types of things. So thank you, Shaun. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, Chris, any parting thoughts before we shut down the show for today?
No. You know, just get out, be good people. I think, you know, everything we talk about always sounds like common sense, but it just amazes me that day in and day out, you know, people lead in the wrong way, use the wrong sort of motivation, fall back on archaic modes of living, breathing, participating, and just, you know, overall contributing. And I just love that we have people every day that we talk to that are doing things the right way and that we're giving them a voice and giving them a place to just articulate the way that they do their thing and they live. And I love that about this. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Thanks for spending the time. And I think the big thing that I think I've always, because I don't know if I mentioned, if I didn't mention it, but I've known Shaun for 8 years, and he actually was one of the few people that when I went through a really tough time, you know, in my business world, that I was going to, he told me, this is the truth. And it's funny, if I would have listened, I would have been a lot better off, but he always has been willing to even stand when people are bolting. And that to me is a sign that you have something of substance when somebody stays when things are not going well. So with that, you hope that we all could be those people, but there are a few people that I found that are actually willing to stick with you, and I think those are the friends you have for life. But anyways, with that, we are going to shut down the show for this week. We'll be back next week at 11 o'clock on Monday. And I just want to thank everybody out there for listening. This was actually our largest week ever as the actual listeners of the show. And so I want to thank everybody for listening this week. And we look forward to providing some great information for you guys. And again, creating a simple philosophy of succeeding in life and sport. So thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Five Star Basketball, the leader in basketball instruction and camps. Endorsed by Michael Jordan, Dick Vitale, and Hubie Brown, and where the teaching never stops. 5 Star Basketball Minnesota will be hosting a one-day instructional camp on May 18th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and will be hosted by 5 Star, the McCarthy Project, and Grassroots Hoops. For more information on the camp, visit themccarthyproject.com/5-star. XL Athlete is the leading provider of online strength and conditioning and speed development camps. For more information on their training programs and speed development camps, visit xlathlete.com.